So the first part is RICO, is racketeering. And all 19 people have been charged with racketeering, which has a minimum mandatory 5 years in jail. They outline 161 alleged acts which they claim were in support of this racketeering, this corrupt organization that was engaged in this racketeering. And including encouraging state officials to violate their oaths of office, a plan to submit a state of false electors, and intimidating an election worker, that's Ruby Freeman and Shea Boss, and the unlawful breaching of voting equipment. That's what happened in Coffee County. So, you know, amazing stuff, amazing stuff. On the line with us is our old buddy Greg Palast, who has been involved, I suppose, I'm not sure exactly how to describe it, been involved in the past with RICO cases, this indictment in RICO. Greg, welcome back to the program. So, Greg, by the way, is the author of How Trump Stole 2020, and his latest movie is Vigilante, Georgia's Vote Suppression Hitman. GregPalast.com is the website. Greg_Palast is his X handle. Hey, Greg, so your thoughts on this?
Well, first of all, when you say involved in RICO, not committing crimes, but charging people with them. In fact, by happenstance, I'm here in the Osage Native Reservation working on a 30-year-old cold RICO case. Somehow there was an indictment against a guy named Charles Koch, but the indictment mysteriously went poof, and I'm here to investigate.
Oh, interesting. Charles Koch, as in the Koch brothers Koch.
Yeah, that Charlie, and who was about to be charged by a grand jury with a $1 billion theft of oil from the Indian reservation here, from the Osage. So I'm here checking that out right now, what happened with the old FBI investigators.
And this ties into Leo DiCaprio's new movie, right?
Yes. What happened is he has a fantastic film coming out called Killers of the Flower Moon, about the killings of Osage for their oil. That ends 100 years ago, and the Osage have asked us and the DiCaprios to make another documentary about what's happened to them in the 100 years since, in particular that the thefts continued by Koch Oil, stealing $1 billion worth of oil from these people.
Wow.
And that case, this is where his political power, his political machine began, when he was able to literally, I'm telling you, he bought senators and bought a prosecutor so he can get out of the indictment. I don't say that thing lightly. And by the way, I did also big racketeering case in Georgia, which has a very tough racketeering law against the Southern Company about I'm getting old, 30 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
I know these laws well. And I can tell you, kudos to Fannie Willis. She has what I consider a hammerlock case on Agent Orange.
Yeah.
But for all the numbers of counts, like you got, like over 140 criminal acts, you've got several what's called predicate crimes. But to understand what the core of the case is, it's a bit abstruse. But the key part of the case is that Giuliani and Sidney Powell and gang were created false electors. Look, Tom, unfortunately in our Constitution, we don't get a chance to vote for President of the United States. All we can do is vote for these people called electors. In some states, they're not even listed on the ballot. We don't vote for Trump or Biden. We vote for an elector. And in the case of Georgia, if they had gotten real electors, instead they took a bunch of, local schmucks, your local butcher, head of the GOP in some town, and they had these people have a meeting. It was like a Genet play, if that's too obscure. It was like a fake meeting of so-called electors. These are self-appointed people who signed under oath, submitted by Giuliani and gang, with Trump's encouragement and direct involvement. He was directly involved. So in that case, what they did was they signed documents saying, I was elected as an elector and I vote for Donald Trump. Well, these people weren't electors. No one elected them. It's as if I said, hey, I'm mayor of Los Angeles. Well, did you When did you win? Well, I didn't even run. Now, the thing is, you're putting it under oath. You're sending this to the president, the vice president, the National Archives. This is a massive, massive fraud. It's a ridiculous fraud. And so ironically, the one thing is, if Trump had simply convinced his Georgia electors, that is the electors he had on the ballot, who were committed to vote for him, he actually might have gotten away with it. Remember, this actually happened in the United States. No one knows history better than you do, Tom. In 1876,
Yep.
the Republicans were able to cut a deal with some Ku Klux Klan Democrats of the South.
Yep, the Tilden Hayes election.
The Tilden Hayes election. And there they got the vice president and the Congress. Basically, they got the Congress, as they wanted Mike Pence to do, to simply reject the Democratic electors, which they could do under our Constitution, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But this didn't happen that way. You didn't have Trump's Georgia electors say, we won the election, so count our votes. Those people said, no, we don't want anything to do with this. Sorry, our guy lost. So instead, they found these poor people to commit these crimes. Often they were lulled into it by saying, this is legal. After all, Giuliani was a U.S. federal prosecutor. He's supposed to know the law, and he's reassuring these people that this is all quite kosher and legal. Well, he was a U.S. prosecutor. He knows damn well you actually have to be elected to office to claim that office.
Yeah. Well, he also used the RICO statutes extensively when he was the prosecutor in New York.
I worked with Giuliani on a RICO case, so I know he knows. Okay. They want me to testify that Giuliani knows the RICO law. Fanny, I'll send you my schedule.
I think she pronounces it fawny, like the baby deer. But yeah, which is. But in any case, is there anything you haven't done, Greg? I mean, it's just.
No, that's because you live long enough. And I have to say that in this RICO, so that's really the core of the RICO indictment. Now, why do they throw in this other stuff? A lot of it is because so you can make it read like a novel. A jury isn't going to be interested in, they weren't exactly the proper electors according to the Article 2 of the Constitution, da-da-da-da-da. You want to tell a story about this, this conspiracy. And the reason why you need to tell this long story is that you have to create, in order to get a conviction for RICO, you need something called an enterprise. That is like the mob. Originally the RICO law, Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act, went after the mob and gangs. And so you have to show that these are a gang, that this is a mob, that these are gangsters working in coordination. That's called the enterprise.
Right. And the essence of this is to get the chief mobster. It's not to necessarily get the hitman off the street, although he very often does that. The main thing is to get the spider at the center of the web.
Right. The point is that laws before, you'd have hitmen go out and, Vinny the Chin always got away with these. He says, I don't know. All I said was, gee, what if an accident happened to that poor guy? So they would throw the hitman in prison, but they could never get Vinny the Chin. That's what RICO was about, was getting the mobster who ordered the hit. Right. In this case, it's an orange-tinted monster. Right. And it's a lot easier case for Fanny to do this. Fawny, sorry. I apologize to Fawny, Ms. Willis. It's a lot easier case because the Jack Smith case, he makes an assertion, which is going to be kind of difficult to prove, that Donald Trump knew he had lost the election. Now, that means that you got to get a jury to somehow enter the yellow gelatinous mind that is Donald Trump and determine what was in his head. Willis does not have to do that. She just has to know that he was at the center of this action to get fake electors to submit his name.
Right.
Thank God that Mike Pence, of all people, stood up to it, because I'm afraid, with our Supreme Court, they might have gotten away with it. But
I get it. Greg, we're out of time. The great Greg Palast, to gregpalast.com. Thank you, Greg.